I'm going to call the meeting to order. This May 1st, 2017 work session of the Gaston County Board of Education. I am Kevin Collier, and to my left is the Vice Chairman, Mr. Jeff Ramsey, and I will start at the end with Mr. Dedman, and if you'll introduce yourself and name your township.
Lee Dedman, Gastonia Township.
Chris Howell, South Point Township.
Terry Usry, Cherryville Township.
Catherine Roberts, Dallas Township.
Dot Guthrie, Gastonia Township.
Brent Moore, Crowder's Mountain Township.
And Dot Cherry, at-large member.
Thank you, and on behalf of the board, we'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. And our next order of business is to adopt the agenda. I'd like to make a change before we adopt it. We do not have it is not necessary to have a closed session tonight for either property or personnel. So if you'll scratch that off the agenda, then I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Mr. Dedman, second by Mr. Ramsey. Any questions or comments? With none, all those in favor show by raising your hand. And the agenda has been adopted unanimously. Okay, the next item is Teacher Appreciation Proclamation, and Mr. Hagens is going to present that to us. This is an action item, folks.
Good evening, Chairman Collier, Vice Chairman Ramsey, members of the board, and Superintendent Booker. It is a pleasure to present to you Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation for Gaston County Schools. Next week, May 8th through the 12th, is National Teacher Appreciation Week, and school districts and educational organizations across the country will celebrate teachers and thank them for the incredible job they do each day. And at this time, I would like to read our proclamation. Whereas Gaston County Schools is proud to join other school districts and education organizations across the country in celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week, May 8th through the 12th, and National Teacher Day on Tuesday, May 9th. And whereas Teacher Appreciation Week is one of our most important observances because it brings attention to the teaching profession, which is worthy of honor and praise. And whereas success in Gaston County Schools begins in the classroom, and our teachers are the people who inspire students every day and instill a lifelong love for learning. And whereas our teachers are a dynamic force in the learning process and consistently exhibit their steadfast commitment to students through their willingness to give of their time, energy, talents, and resources. And whereas teachers are more than just instructional leaders, they also are role models, mentors, motivators, listeners, encouragers, caregivers, and coaches who significantly impact the lives of children. And whereas we recognize that all educators play a significant role in the vitality, economic prosperity of our community because they are the people responsible for shaping our future. Now, therefore, to honor all teachers who deserve the utmost respect and adulation for their contributions they make to our schools and for their efforts to positively influence the leaders of tomorrow, the Gaston County Board of Education proclaims the week of May the 8th through the 12th, 2017 as Teacher Appreciation Week in Gaston County Schools and encourages students, parents, school employees, and others to express their appreciation for our teachers. Be it further resolved that this proclamation be made a part of the minutes of the Gaston County Board of Education. The proclamation is being presented to you this evening for consideration and approval. It will be posted on our website, and a copy will be sent to each school for display in the main office. I would like to add that if you search for Teacher Appreciation Week online, you may come across two dates, this week and next week. From what we can tell, the confusion lies in the idea that Teacher Appreciation is the first full week of May and the interpretation of whether the full week begins on Sunday or Monday. The May the 8th through the 12th date, which we will observe in Gaston County Schools based on your approval, coincides with the National Education Association and the National PTA celebration of the week, and the two organizations are observing National Teacher Day on Tuesday, May the 9th. So if you visit our schools over the next 2 weeks, you may see Teacher Appreciation Week activities taking place this week and next week, which is okay, because we believe that every week is Teacher Appreciation Week. And Mr. Collier, that concludes my comments and presentation of the proclamation for the board's approval.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hagens. This is an action item. We'll need a motion and a second. A motion by Mr. Usry, a second by Ms. Guthrie. Any comments or questions? With none, all those in favor, show by raising your hand. And that's unanimous. Next item is recommended approval of the 2017-2018 Gaston County Board of Education budget request. Mr. Hoskins.
Good evening, Chairman Collier, Vice Chairman Ramsey, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. I'm here to present for approval the Gaston County Schools budget request. Last meeting, which was April 10th, we did present the superintendent's budget request, and we're bringing forth, based on that discussion and things that have changed since April 10th, we're bringing forward to you the Gaston County budget request. By state law, we are required to deliver this request to the county commissioners by May 15th. The Gaston County Commissioners will approve their local budget sometime in May and June. And before the end of the year, usually the last board meeting in June, we will be asking this board to approve an interim budget. That's something that we do every year, since a state budget would not yet have been approved at that point in time. And then sometime in August or September, we expect to have a board resolution after we receive a state budget. Just a few things on the state update. Not a lot has changed with regard to the state budget since April 10th. Of course, we talked about the budget request by the governor the last couple of times. The General Assembly, we do expect the Senate to release their budget here at mid-May, and since we did this, I think it came out that it will be sometime the week of May 7th, which I believe is next week. And also the House is expected to approve their budget prior to Memorial Day, so towards the end of this month. And after we get both of those budgets, there'll be a reconciliation process which could take several weeks. So just touching base on our local requests that we talked about in depth at the April 10th meeting, there's three components of our local request: our ongoing expenditures, new initiatives, and the state-mandated initiatives. And our total request when we talked on April 10th was just over $8.8 million. That number's been revised a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So our ongoing expenditures, those are the two items that mainly, or that comprise that, would be our state-mandated changes in our retirement contribution. That's the employer-provided retirement contribution. Also increases in the employer-provided health insurance. The second item would be replacing end-of-life mobile devices. That's not to get to one-to-one, that's to stay where we are. The other item that we talked a lot about on April 10th was the new initiatives, $3.5 million. 5 primary new initiatives. The first one, and the one that was determined to be the most important when we did the stakeholder survey, was the increase in the certified employee salary supplement, and that's $500,000. And as you'll recall, the county commissioners have done a good job of addressing this need. They stepped up last year and put $1.5 million. Prior to that, I think they did $90,000 a couple years ago. So we certainly, need to remain competitive and to be more competitive with our teacher pay and keep the good teachers, and that's one of our primary focuses with this new budget request. Also, we talked about increasing our classified employee salaries. This asks for a 3% adjustment, which is reflective of what the state and the county has been receiving over the last couple of years. Additional school choice options. Dr. Baltonight has talked a lot about the new magnet school, the Gifted and Talented Academy that we'll have at Pleasant Ridge when that opens in August, as well as the virtual public school, or virtual school for middle schoolers next year. We would also like to have additional funding to bring our student to mobile device ratio from where it is right now, which is 1.4, 1.6, depending on how you look at a mobile device, to a 1.1. And finally, increasing our professional development for our kindergarten through 8th grade teachers. The other major item, the third item in our budget request, and this is the one that has changed, is the state mandated initiatives for K-3 classroom sizes. Our request back at the last meeting was $4.8 million. However, since that time, things have changed. The General Assembly has actually approved and the governor has signed some changes to this bill, and I think it's HB 13. It's a modified version of what we talked about a couple of months ago. A couple of the grade levels were changed to be more favorable to us. A couple were changed to be less favorable to us. But here's what the changes are, and these are now state law. So the top chart represents where we are right now. So average class size of 1 to 21 in grades K through 3, and a maximum individual class size of 1 to 24 in those same grades. That's where we are now. Next year, the 2017-2018 year, the maximum average class size will go from 1 to 21 down to 1 to 20 for all grades, K through 3. The maximum individual class size will go from 1 to 24 to 1 to 23. So a step in the right direction from what we were going to encounter had this bill not been approved. And the next year is what you see is what we were expecting for the coming year. So they essentially moved it 1 year in the future. So then in 2018, 2019, we would go from 1 to 20 to anywhere between 1 to 16 students to 1 to 18 students on average, and maximum individual from 1 to 23 to anywhere between 1 to 19 to 1 to 21. It differs by grade, and you can see the changes there. So it gives us an extra year to prepare for this. So we're preparing a little bit this year. We're going to take some of the pain this year, and some of the pain will be coming next year. Now, there is discussion about including some itinerant teachers and some other things that may help out in the coming year, but right now that's just a discussion item, and that is not a part of the current law.
Mr. Chair. Real quick, Mr. Hoskins, we had the one number that it was before as we were projecting that the numbers were going to be a lot lower. Based on the change, what's the financial impact?
It is quite a bit right here.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yes. So we asked for $4.8 million. That would fully fund us really where we're going to have to be in the coming year. So right now we're estimating it to be about $430,000. That's moving some teachers around. As we've always said, there are no cuts in the arts, music, or PE. We have never discussed that, and that is continuing to be our stance. We are realigning some positions, and we will have some additional facility needs, but nothing like what we were going to be facing had they not approved this modified version of HB 13. And as I mentioned earlier, the full impact will be realized in 2018, 2019. So a summary, if you look at what our original request was when we provided you this book, and it's still in your book right now, the $4.8 million request is now down to $4.4 million. The only change is in these state-mandated initiatives. There's no changes in the ongoing expenditures or the new initiatives that we discussed last meeting.
Mr. Devman.
Mr. Hoskins, have we sent this to our county commissioners to show that the state has done this House Bill 13, and they need to know this.
We have not sent that. This happened last Wednesday, Thursday, I can't remember, so we wanted to bring this to you first.
I did communicate with the county manager, the revision, as far as that
I mean, because
this
this
is
is good
helpful.
news to them and
Yes.
us too, because we don't, you know.
I did,
that's-
so as he
that's
was
a lot of
building
money.
his budget.
One other question, Gary, did we put this on our website?
Uh,
Budget.
This is on their website.
Right, have we got?
The
any
new one
yeah,
that we have,
The one we got last week, did we
Yes.
have any response from the public at all about the budget?
I have not received any comments.
But it is out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
And this, what's out there now, will be replaced with what we are asking you to approve tonight. So what we're asking for from the county, last year we asked for 51.2 million. This year it'll be 51.7 million, and our total local funding would actually drop a little bit from 53.9 million to 53.7 million because we're taking less funds from our fund balance, because we're trying to be a little more judicious in the amount of fund balance that we spend and trying to maintain that. Our capital request, since we talked last time, has not changed. We are asking for $5.9 million. That's $1.16 per square foot. Right now, we get $1.2 million, which is about 0.25 cents per square foot. And I believe the average is about $1.25 or $1.30 per square foot. So we're asking for money that's even less than the average. And finally, we have asked and are continuing to ask that the county commissioners issue the $40 million in school bonds that will expire in November. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Roberts?
Do you mind sending us the revisions, just so we have it, a paper copy,
This
when
right
we
here?
start, from what was in our original book, just from the state mandates?
Absolutely. I thought that y'all
For
had
when
the
we get-
PowerPoint.
Oh, I haven't even looked yet. I've been looking at
Is the
my book.
PowerPoint not out there? But we'll certainly make sure that you have that.
Okay.
Okay.
That way we'll have it when we get
Absolutely. Yes,
questions.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Howell?
Chair, has there been any conversation between yourself and Mr. Ramsey or Mr. Booker and Mr. Mathers about the budget, the direction we were going, kind of how we were getting there, what some projected needs were going to be, so that when we lay this on their desk on the 15th, it's not a surprise to them? I mean, we've talked about that in the past, over the years. This is my fourth budget, I guess. We've talked about it in the past that we need to have more communication with them so they see it coming, so it's not a surprise. They don't have to try to cipher it out for themselves the first day they get it, that there's been some work behind the scene. Has that happened, or just the chaos of the day has kind of gotten away from us?
We had a preliminary meeting with some kind of budget numbers we threw out there with them when our two boards met. We have not had a discussion since we are finalizing this budget here. We are reaching out, trying to get on their agenda next week to do a short presentation and answer any questions that they might have. But it's going to be a follow-up of what we presented to them, basically in new initiatives, and now that we know what our number looks like as far as mandated teachers from the state. We haven't sent it over just yet. We have to send it before the 15th, but we will send it over early and then try to get on their agenda next week.
And we also meet with their staff every month. We have not met with them since this change, because like I said, this change happened last week, and I think we're actually meeting with them probably next Wednesday, or this Wednesday or this Thursday. So we do try to keep them informed of things that we see coming, and they try to keep us informed of things that we should be on the lookout for.
So to continue on, I think it'd be prudent on our part, considering the rocky relationship over the last couple of months, many months, that whoever hand delivers that, and maybe it'd be good if you gave a copy to the chair as they're getting a copy, to say, hey, just want to run you through a couple of things that might surprise you, but this is why. I just think that'd be a good communication part. I mean, that's one of the things they've hammered us on. I know Mr. Hoskins said there's been communication with staff, but we've seen where there's been communication that didn't get communicated to them supposedly. And I think that would be good if, when you hand it to them, that you say, hey, here's some of the things I don't want you to be surprised about, other than them getting it and getting a chance to figure out for themselves what they think it is before we present at their next board meeting. That's just my opinion and recommendation as a board member.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Howell. Any other questions or comments? We'll need a motion and a second to adopt this budget. There's a motion by Mr. Dedman, second by Ms. Cherry.
I did make the
And-
motion. Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Before that? I agree with Mr. Howe. It would really be good if we could get some of our budgets to their regular, to all their county commissioners before we get on their agenda, because I know that I would like to see it. Because, this is something the state is mandating for us that we don't have any control over. So they need to realize and know that, that they're obligated to this situation. So, but I would appreciate it if we could get something to them before we get on their agenda.
All right, any more questions or comments? Dana, you have the motion and second? Okay. All right, all those in favor show by raising your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. The next item is Title I grant, Ms. Bognight and Ms. Hester.
Good evening, Superintendent Booker, Chairman Collier, and members of the board. Tonight I have with me our Director of Title I, Ms. Hester, and she will share with you our Title I eligibility recommendations for the upcoming school year. A part of developing the Title I plan is we need to share the information with the board. This is an information item this evening, and we'll bring it back after you've had time to process it in a few weeks as an action item.
Thank you, Dr. Botnight. This evening, I come to share with you eligibility for next year for Title I, and also the key components of our Title I application, which is due June 30th. For eligibility, we have in our formula direct certification and categorically eligible divided by the total enrollment at each of our schools. By definition, direct certification are students that are children that are served through Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Programs, or SNAP, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, or Food Distribution Program on Indian Reservations, which we have none. Our categorically eligible students are those that are eligible if they are homeless, migrant, or in foster care, and for pre-K, Head Start, or Even Start. So why this particular formula? The benefits of having a uniform formula for all schools is that we have that uniform measure for all. Information is easily obtained for our private schools that may want to participate in Title I Part A. And we also have a state mandated timeline that we must follow. So to qualify using this formula, your elementary schools must meet the 45% threshold of poverty, as those measures define, and for middle and high, that threshold is 55%. So our proposed Title I schools for 17-18, we would have the same 24 schools that we currently serve, 19 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and Warlick Academy. Covered by the grandfather clause for 1 year would be 5 of our elementary schools, Catawba Heights, Cherryville, McAdenville, Springfield, and W.B. Bean. And this means that they currently, based on the April 1 numbers, do not qualify as meeting the threshold of 45%. So they have 1 year of continued eligibility, and should they not meet the requirement on the April 1 report the following year, they would not be served in 18-19. Our Title I plan for 2017-18, we have a planning budget of $7,653,507, which represents a projected 15% cut from this current school year's funding. District initiatives that we would like to continue and include our preschool support, curriculum facilitators, instructional facilitators, literacy teachers, middle school math support teachers for our 4 middle schools, parent involvement required, which is 1% set aside. Our school allocation is a per pupil expenditure, and with this formula, that represents $465.97 per child. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to help answer them.
Okay, Ms. Cherry?
Ms. Hester, who determines the percentile now? You've got 45, 55. Has it always been that? I thought it was a little higher. Do we determine that, or?
It is a working average based on the 2 charts that she started
Yeah.
with. And there are minimums that are set, and we have, as a district, tried to stay above those minimums,
Okay.
because like you saw, the 5 schools that are on the buffer, we try to minimize that fluctuation that goes between them. But you are correct to look at those numbers the way you did.
Okay.
I have a question.
Ms.
I know that we have some parent specialists in schools like Lingerfeld and some of the other schools. And is that part of the 1% that's set aside, or is that something that Mr. Ross, who is working with the parents now, would he be included in that number?
Yes, ma'am, that 1% does fund that parent involvement specialist, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any more questions, Ms. Scott?
No, sir.
I have one, the $7 million cut. Where does that come from?
The state has not received their federal funding yet, and so they said to take your budget based on last year and reduce it by 15, similar to what you do with us when we adopt our interim budget, and we adopted at 85% of the previous budget. But they have projected that we will get approximately 10%, they're fairly confident, less dollars this year.
Mr. Howe?
This is not a question for Ms. Hester or Dr. Baltnight. It's more for you, Chair. Going forward, when it's I'm assuming this isn't an action item, it's just informational items, action, I think, on our agenda. And going forward, if it's an informational item that's going to be brought forward for action, can we get some documentation to go with the information when we get it? I know we get the PowerPoint slides. We didn't get that one on the phone, so we don't have anything to really go back and reference or to note on when we're doing it, like the per pupil spending that we're doing or how many schools that it's facilitating. So if I go back tomorrow, unless I took notes today, I don't have that. So if we get some documentation on informational items going forward that'll become action items, I think, just like with the budget, we get the budget, so we're able to kind of go through that, look at it, ask the questions, formulate it a day later when it pops in our head. If we get that going forward, I'd greatly appreciate it. Ms. Asher, thank you for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions or comments about the Title I grant money?
I would like to add that this is Ms. Hester's first time of doing it formally, so she has run the gauntlet. Dr. Balknight and I spent several hours going through the fine details of it with her last week, but she did a great job, and she brings the experience of having been a Title I principal, so she has that position, and she defended well some of the challenges we had, how the numbers were broken down. And what you all need to know is a large percentage of these numbers are directly dictated by the federal one and the way the Title I grant is established, like where she showed the 1%. There are other numbers above that that establish the breakdown. So we're fortunate to have someone with the skill set to be able to represent us as we present it back to Raleigh.
Thank you, Ms. Hester. The next item on our agenda is policy updates. Is that Ms. McGraw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these are the annual or biannual updates that this board sees when either the General Assembly or the State Board moves and their actions require some reaction on your part. So those changes have been vetted through cabinet members and staff of cabinet and brought back through cabinet and are now presented to the board for your review and approval. They will come to you tonight only for information. In fact, they'll be sent to you by a link to our website, and they are voluminous. I will give you some fair warning. But we've given you not only the draft of that policy, but also the lined item to make you aware of why that modification is needed. I will tell you that for the most part, we're looking at changes due to vocabulary changes or things changed from No Child Left Behind to now the Every Student Succeeds Act and some of those vocabulary changes. You might recall that we bring what I will call substantive policy changes to you on an individual basis. The most recent substantive policy change that we brought to you was probably the sixth graders being able to participate in athletics. I consider that something that needs to be its own separate agenda item for this board to consider and then make your own policies. These are more or less policy updates. If you have questions about those, you have the next couple of weeks to contact me or staff with those questions, other members of cabinet with those questions, and we'll be happy to address those. And they will come back for your approval on the consent agenda at your next meeting.
And those are posted on the website for the public to review as well, if they would like.
After this meeting tonight, and they will be posted for the public to view as well, both sets of those documents.
Any questions of Ms. McGraw? With none, that'll complete our agenda. Mr. Dedman.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second by Ms. Cherry. All those in favor, show by raising your hand. And we are adjourned.